Good evening. Welcome to the Comprehensive Plan Committee meeting. It is December 6, 2023. I'll make a note that we do have a quorum present along with Sam and Kate from North Star Planning. First order of business are our minutes from November 1st, 2023. Can I get a motion to approve?
Approve.
And a second, please?
Second.
Okay. And do you have any discussion?
I just have a question. In the minutes, just so that everyone's aware, the interview that was posted was not the interview that I had with Ms. Raymond for Lakes Region. The interview was with a select board member, and I believe, if I read it, it was a discussion of the comp plan prior to the committee being formed.
Yes, it looks like it's from Thursday, September 23rd, 2021.
Oh, I'm not muted again.
Thank you.
That was me.
So just to clarify.
Yes, I just assumed that was intentional, but maybe not.
Okay, so let me get into there. Whoops, this one. So which part was that again?
It's the article is from Thursday, September 23rd, 2021, and
Raymond looks to the future with the
November
comprehensive plan.
3rd, 2023 article.
Oh, I grabbed the wrong article.
It's not a
okay, I
problem.
see.
I mean, just making it clear that I did make it clear in that interview that both that the logo was to be used, the QR was supposed to be used, and that they would publish the date of the January event. So.
Okay.
Do you think we can
I can
approve
add-
minutes as amended with the
Yes.
new article put in?
Yeah, and I'll fix that.
All right.
Get that sent back out.
Can I have a
posted.
motion to approve as amended?
So moved.
All right, and this,
Second.
we'll call it a second. All right, and all in favor? And that passes unanimously. Thank you. So we'll move right on to old business with public outreach check-in, and that can be head off by you, Kate?
Yeah, Kayla, if we have people, if we want to do the January event first, we can do that if people are on Zoom. Is someone from Parks and Rec on Zoom, or do I have their name?
Yes, it looks like we have.
Do you want to
Joe.
do that
Yep.
first so he
Are we
doesn't have
okay
to
as a
stay?
committee taking this out of order? Okay, we will start with the January logistics event and outline instead of public outreach.
Yeah, I think so. Based on what we've been talking about with Peter and Kayla and Sue, I understand that our event will now be in the cafeteria at the middle school. There will be youth basketball going on in the gym. And I think we should use this as a good opportunity to try to get people who might not otherwise engage with this kind of event to come in. So the plan is for us to really go through like the details of everything for the event at the next meeting in January, but we did put together some initial thoughts, and because of the format and the youth basketball thing, I think we really want this to be open house style. So we will not have a formal presentation. There won't be a start and finish. Of a presentation. It'll just be people can walk in anytime during those few hours. And I think if we can get some committee volunteers to be there, we can kind of have greeters to help steer people into the event. And what we're envisioning is that we will have sign-in stations for people as they come in. We will have, instead of doing a presentation, I think we'll have a handout of Raymond facts. And if we can get it set up, we can even bring our projector and have it sort of playing slides on a wall or something. And then we will have stations around the room with activities and questions for people to answer. As well as I think some kids activities too, like coloring and stuff like that, so that if people have younger kids or whatever with them, we can entertain them as well. So I think, that's our initial idea. I think what we'll be asking is for committee volunteers,
that screen, that's the slide.
people to help us get snacks and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I will turn it over to you and to Joseph if you.
Sure. So I think that's a great pivot to do an open house style, because there will be people coming in and out of the gym for that entire time period. So it makes a lot of sense, because if they already feel like they're interrupting something, they'd be less likely to come in. So I think this pivot is a good idea.
Yeah, I'd like to walk you through kind of the format too, because I don't know if this would change how you guys want to collect data during what time, but usually we operate from 8:30 to probably around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock, depending on the schedule, sometimes 4 o'clock. So 8:30 is, we have a huge first and second grade group coming in, and that's around 44 families coming in to play basketball. So that might be a good time to be there as well in the morning. And then after that, from 10 on is our third and fourth grade, fifth and sixth grade games. So that morning time for January 20th especially might be a good time to set up. I didn't know if that was possible. I know on there was 12 to I think 4 was the original time.
Yeah, I think we had scheduled it from 1 to 4.
I think we were trying to avoid conflicts of space
Yes.
at that point in time. So, I mean, we would capitalize on having citizens and parents there. They have to walk right by the cafeteria to get into the gym. It might be better to try and,
I think if we have enough committee members that are willing to be there through the span of that time or take shifts, I think we could entertain. I don't know about, your time and how that would factor into it. So we might have to consider that maybe you've prepared the materials for us, but we take over at that point.
Yeah, I think the other thing to think about is we have put out some ads and stuff that say 1 to 4 already. Otherwise, I would say let's just switch it earlier. But we could potentially set up earlier in the morning, and then we could be there for the first part of it. And then the committee members it'll be open house style, so then you could all take over, or we could potentially kind of split a shift between us as well, so each of us is only here for a couple hours. So what time would the most intersection of families be? So it starts at 8:30, but
So that's when games start for first and second grade, and that's going to be our biggest group because we have 2 courts going at the same time right now. So I mean that's probably the peak of it, and then after that you're looking at maybe 20 families coming in about every hour.
Okay.
Would it be fair to say, Joe, sorry to interrupt, that after that 1 hour approximately is done, from 8:30, so 9:30, you'd have people leaving the gym from those 2 courts, and then you'd have people entering. So
Correct.
this sort of sweet spot may not be starting at 8:30, but more as opposed on the other side of that 9:30. Is that a fair assumption?
For sure, and we have about a half-hour transition time between that first and second grade group and the start of the next game, which is at 10. So because we have to move the court around to get the full court, so you'll have a half hour in between there to kind of people will probably be milling about, some people coming in, some people leaving, so that might be a ideal time to get people's attention.
And I'll say too, I'm supposed to be there at 8:30 already. My son's got a game that day at 8:30. So from my perspective, when the games take place, I think it's a great pivot. I think it's going to really catch a lot of the groups that would maybe see some hesitancy or some difficulty in getting out. And there's, just to throw it out there is a lot of foot traffic during the game too, because for myself anyway, I have younger kids, and usually you have to be moving around. So
They go up and down
they
that
go up
hallway.
all the time. So I think you're going to start to you could get traffic as early as 8:30, and you could get significant traffic as early as 8:30, because that's a really big crowd.
Yeah, and that's January 20th, and January 27th is a different setup because the Wyndham High School we don't have the gym that day, so our kinder group, which is run by the high school varsity basketball teams, they're coming to Jordan Small on the 27th. So that'll be our kinder group mixed with the Wyndham kinder group, and then you'll have the first and second grade beginners league with Wyndham during that time as well. So that's going to be a different setup for Jordan Small. I think you could collect a whole different set of people on that day.
What's running through my mind, I think it's a great idea to capture and combine these, but I'm just going to flip the other side of it, and will we be able to get good engagement with parents if they're going and coming from a basketball game that they'd probably feel some obligation or maybe love for watching, more than coming to a CompPlan info session. I guess what it'll require is having kind of, like you say, these modules that are easily accessible to a parent with 5 to 15 minutes of time to drill down on these topics that are kind of deeper than 5 to 15 minutes. I see a little bit of a conflict there, but I'm not going to be a naysayer. Just throwing that out there for a little more discussion. And can we really get good engagement with the parents and not worried about the other folks who would just come who weren't coming for basketball. They'd probably be inclined to stick at it and make the full circuit around the room for the stations. But certainly the parents with younger kids are a target audience, and
I think I can help with that. I could always send. We have our own email blast that goes out to parents and stuff, so we can almost put out what activities or what's going on during the basketball time. So maybe they would be more apt to say, "Oh, well, my child who's not playing basketball and come in color, and I can learn about this," and then maybe that'll allow a little bit more planning before they head to the gym. So that's a possibility as well.
good.
I don't want to put you on the spot, Joe, but could we sweeten the deal by offering some sort of raffle? Like, I don't know, a Parks and Rec sweatshirt or tassel top sweatshirt or a tassel top pass? I don't know. Just thinking off the top of my head here.
Of course. No, I think this would be, I'm getting rid of some of the tassel top swag, so I'm trying to find some ways to unload our past inventory, so that can be one thing. And I haven't given away any tassel top season passes this year yet, so we can use it for this
Just
event.
thinking, is at least if we could say, I'm just trying to think of what our kids have to do when you take them to those like movie and our nights at at the school where they have to get all the stamps in order to enter into the raffle to win the prize. I mean, what if we did something like that where you have to like hit the stations to enter the raffle? I don't know. I mean, we're treating adults like kids here.
No, I thought the same
We
thing.
do. We have done events where we've done like passports like this, but for this, I would almost say I would rather just say sign in and give us your email and you're entered into the raffle, because then we have them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, I think there's definitely a cross promotion there as well. I mean, Tassel Top Park's definitely part of the the CompPlan and part of Raymond, and I think the more we advertise that, the better as well for Raymond residents. So I'd be all for that. Just let me know how much and how many, and we can work that out.
Okay. Peter?
Yeah, so I do share some of the concerns that John has. So I guess could we just get a little bit more in depth as far as how we would collect data? Because my understanding is that's the primary objective here, is to collect data on opinions, so we can have a better founded consensus. we would have stations, and just as an example, something like the election with pom-poms. We'd throw up 4 or 5 issues involving Raymond's future, and we would say, you can select 3 pom-poms and have your first, second, third choice, something like that. And then have other stations similar where we'd ask questions or ask for feedback.
Yeah, so what I think what I'm envisioning at this point is that understanding that some people will, like, especially like parents, some of the parents might not want to stay, they might not be able to stay. So if we can at least get people to sign up for an email list, we can also have like an online survey version of this too that gets sent out to them later. So there's kind of 2 levels of engagement going on here. One will just be building awareness, getting some new people to sign up, give us their email. And then the more traditional sort of thing that we're doing at this event is we will have stations around the room that touch some of the CompPlan topics. So we haven't finished drafting the questions yet, but usually we have at least 1 or 2 map activities. So there will be a big map of Raymond, and we'll ask you to put dots on certain things. I think there will probably be some question about housing, some question about transportation, natural resources. Like I said, we haven't sort of nailed down what we're thinking for those yet, but we also will do a combination of things where you're sort of just sticking a dot or voting with a dot, and things where like you're writing an answer on a Post-it or on a poster board. So just sort of different levels. And if people have time and want to engage with everything that day, that's great. Hopefully we'll get a crowd of people who are just coming for the CompPlan event. But I think we can also hopefully take advantage of people who might not have otherwise come, and at least just get them to sign up and be aware that it's going on, even if they answer an online survey later or something like that.
So I guess and you touched on it a little bit there, but I'm an interested individual, and rather than have the open house format, I want to sit down and have a 20, 30-minute presentation about what this is all about, and also some Q&A or something like that. How I know that we've been focusing kind of on the basketball event. And I don't disagree with that. I think that is a way to capture a demographic that we haven't been seeing as much as we hope to on the preliminary survey. But once again, I'm going there, and I want to know what this is all about. I've been maybe hearing a little bit about it, and I want to sit down and have a presentation, not an open house. How do we provide for those individuals in this format?
We were planning on having a fact sheet, which is something we've done in some other communities, as well as assuming there's a blank wall somewhere, we can just bring our projector and have a kind of rolling presentation. There will be staff around. Hopefully we'll have committee members around who can also help answer questions.
Also, usually you have like a question box for people to write notes of questions they have. And so we take those and add those to comments.
And I think if we do this kind of just totally open, the next event we do, we would likely do a more formal presentation for the future land use event.
Does it make sense to have a sort of, I don't know, like a 5-minute presentation that we all know and have like somewhat memorized, so that that's the basis of our pitch, so that it is like formal in that sense, but then it's open in the sense that, we can ad hoc answer any other questions? Does that mean in the middle, or like a framework that gives us, so that we're each saying like that 5 basic facts we need to be saying, hitting all the high points, so we're all consistent, A, B, C, D, and then we can answer any questions individually.
I kind of feel like if we also had a lot of handout materials, something that is saying what we would have said otherwise might help with that as well. Maybe just a thought.
Maybe that's just the fact sheet too?
Is that just the
Yeah,
fact
and
sheet, or
we
is
can Yeah, we can kind of customize that. I think.
Can we put on there too, like, the dates of our meetings, like
Yeah.
upcoming meetings for the next 6 months or so that people can see when the dates are that we're meeting and invite them, that they're always welcome to come and attend and participate?
Yeah, definitely. I think, we could consider doing something like having a presentation that we do a couple times during the event. I think I just hesitate sometimes because then you wind up like standing in a room full of people, like clapping your hands, trying to get everybody to be quiet for a little while. But
I think definitely something we should put a little bit of time into is, I think Joe's vehicle, as far as informing the parents of the basketball players of exactly what's going to be offered, and designing that in such a way that it's quick, easy to read, but at the same time it's pretty comprehensive and kind of directs people as to what this is all about. I think that's going to be essential. So the committee should put something together, or North Star put something together that does that. So Joe has that to get out. Joe, what would the time frame be for that newsletter or that email notification?
I mean, I can time it up any time before that week. The schedule will be coming out hopefully by then next week. We got the first 2 weeks down, but we're waiting until next week to finalize the rest. That's January and February's schedule, because we take about 2 weeks off for Christmas break there. So I can time that out anytime. We can do 5 days before the January 20th, and then we could do it again maybe a few days before January 27th. So it's very customizable.
Sure.
that sounds great. So I think January 27th is our snow date.
Yes, Joe, that's our snow date.
So
Okay, so it's a one-time.
It's a one-time thing with a
Okay.
snow date of the 27th.
yeah. I think
Perfect.
though, at one point, some of the committee members had asked about like, could we, if we're just doing this at one time slot, could we replicate it at another time? So that was also something we were thinking of with having it be more open and informal, is then, we're just making printed materials. If you want to, we can print another copy and you can take it, to other groups, other places around town, things like that.
Well, one thought that came to me as we were talking about Joe's schedule of when people are coming in and the whole having a group of people there at 8:30. I think one of the premises that we were thinking about with having an event for the kids to do was that during that time period it would free up the parents. So if we aren't there at 8:30 when the parents are getting there, dropping their kids off, or at least have the flexibility to go and do this, and we wait until they're leaving, then they've got a group of kids that they're trying to shepherd through with them through this. That might be worth thinking about.
Would the kiddos be, would the kiddo activity be envisioned to be in the same room as?
No, that's Joe's point.
I mean,
That's
they'd
Joe's
be
responsibility.
ushered- they'd be, that would happen in some adjacent room.
Well, they're playing basketball.
They're playing basketball, I got that piece, but
But
there's
is there
some.
like a classroom maybe we could have access to? Maybe we could even get some of the kids that helped with the summer rec program, like to volunteer a few hours, or maybe we could even pay them, I don't know, to kind of be, run activities with the kids or do coloring activities or crafty kind of things with them.
Put on a movie and give them popcorn and they'll
There
be
you go.
set.
There you go.
Yeah, movie, actually running a movie is not a bad idea.
Yeah, if we can lure people with snacks and ways to entertain their kids for 5 minutes, I think that will
I don't-
help us.
And as far as the game, Sue, you make a good point. As far as the game goes, you'll see a lot of both parents there, so they may be able to tag team.
Divide and conquer.
Yeah.
And I think I really do think it's a good opportunity, starting at least at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
If not 8:30. I don't need to watch the game. I'll be there.
You're looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's get the movie on.
I suppose the other thing we should be discussing is snacks and how we'd like to do that. Is that correct?
Yeah, we can. So I was thinking we would finalize all these logistics at the January meeting. Like, we don't need to figure out who's buying snacks when at this point, I don't think. But if the committee is okay with kind of moving forward with this path, we will work more on questions and activities and have materials and things to share with you at the next meeting. And we can also figure out who wants to volunteer to do what, basically. I think maybe we can figure out either we'll sort of tag team it or figure out a way to at least be there for the first part of it, get it set up, and then just in case somebody got a business card that says 1 to 4 and shows up at 3:30 or something, we don't want it to be totally gone.
Well, I think we have to be there till 4, no matter what. I mean, we've already committed to that, so
Yeah,
I think we
so-
have to
Yeah.
hold fast to that, but I think we can be a little bit flexible on the start time.
Yeah, hopefully we can
Yeah, it'd be a
divide
shame
and
to miss
conquer
them.
with our volunteers and
If Joe has such a big group that's coming in at that time, it'd be a
Yeah.
shame to miss them.
I mean, I think 9 or 9:30 is fair. I just think, at 8:30, personally, you've got kids, you're rushing, you're probably already late. Would we really capture that many people at 8:30? I'm not entirely convinced about that.
Right.
But once the first games and activities are starting to end and people are coming in and out, I feel like that would be the opportunity to catch people more. But I mean, that's just me,
No,
always being late.
Those are good points. And
Yeah.
Joe sees me running late all the time.
So I
I mean,
I kind of
you get those
advocate for-
transition times too, and people are waiting in the hall. So
Yeah.
if we're running a little bit behind, I mean, they're right there to capture.
Yeah.
So I think that's also those transition times will be key to get people's attention who might not seen the email or don't know what's going on. So
Sean, you had your hand up?
Yeah, I'm kind of unfamiliar with the middle school. Is that cafeteria on the way to the court?
yeah.
Yep, you
Okay.
can't get to the court without going
Can't
by
miss it.
the court.
When you go in to vote, and go down that long ramp, there's like a glass wall, sort of, that's the cafeteria.
Okay.
It's a good room.
Yes.
Is there any kind of signage that we can put up in addition to outside as well?
yeah, we should put up.
Yeah.
We'll make more signs than usual. And I think also that, like, if we can divide volunteering up and maybe have somebody kind of outside there. I haven't been in there, so maybe this doesn't make sense, but kind of outside the cafeteria, kind of directing people.
You could almost stand at the doors of the cafeteria and just pull people in.
Yeah, like
It's,
that.
it's not like a
Be like, hey, sign up for the CompPlan and you
Yeah.
could win a free tassel top hat.
yeah.
Yeah, it's very easy to solicit. You can't walk by without seeing it. Or if someone, if you have a sign right, in the entranceway, and then that gets their attention, then they have someone right near the calf. I mean, you're gonna see everybody that comes in and leaves.
So I think we need to come to at least a general consensus of whether we think this is a good idea as a whole or not.
I'll make one more pitch for caution, only that we make sure we get the attention of the parents that we need the input from. I mean, we've put a lot of time into this committee, and this is about making good decisions and planning for the town of Raymond, and I don't want to belittle the importance of the opportunity of engaging with the younger population. Some of those basketball stars could be the future leaders of Raymond, and but in '04, I'm going to say we had Jordan's Raymond Elementary School, and I think we probably had 80 people in that afternoon session, and it was 1 to 4, I think, or something in the afternoon. And if I'm recalling right, I think the kiddos were all in another part of RES, and they had activities going on separately. And so we basically had undivided attention of the parents for a good solid 2 hours to walk them through what we'd spent time working on, and then there were some kind of perimeter activities to provide input. So not saying we have to stick with that model, but I just underscore for the importance of this event to get good input from a wide range of voting parents and landowners. That's really the focus of it. And I just wonder if we'll get impaired with our ability to do that with the traffic happening and basketball happening and kiddos to manage in and around the room and movies going on, and we're trying to get content for a comp plan.
Frank?
So I'll be silent for the rest of the evening.
No, you don't have to be. Frank?
Is there any chance we could break this into two sections? One session where we capture the young adults who have children coming to the rec programs, and the one we are talking about now, continuing at those particular hours that we've set to do it, where we hope to catch other areas of the community, other people in the community besides just the younger people. Is it possible to do the basketball piece the following week at the 27th and continue with the time schedule we have for the week before?
Guess I'll ask that. Was that on you? Because that's almost double the effort on your part. So as far as, our agreement and contract and what's been laid out, how would that affect that?
I think for budget reasons, we'd probably want to stick to one event that we go to, and then if we do it kind of open house style and give you the prompts and activities, you can have another event, as many as you want. We can just kind of give you the materials to have another meeting somewhere else or at another time.
I think the opportunity would be to do that on the same day and have the AM piece for the basketball and the parents that are going to be focused on that, and those that could be captured to have access to all the content and information from, pick a number, 9 to 11 or something, 9 to 10, and then as we've advertised, and 1 to 4 would be a more formal come in, and be probably some folks without kiddos that attend to that. I think that's a good solution, Frank, to do it all, but do it on the same day, so we don't have two mobilizations.
That would be fine.
I do think, we haven't had a big open house event for this plan yet. We haven't kind of done anything like that or any public big event yet. So we do have another event that I think it's on the agenda because it's supposed to happen in March. That is usually a more formal workshop. So I think, that will happen too.
That discussion's land use primarily, right?
Yes, but we usually, the way to sort of talk about that is usually to summarize everything we've heard so far and all the sort of things we're working on so far.
So another potential as far as blending the John and John ideas would be something like, is it possible to arrange for breakout sessions? So you have basically the open house available for anybody who wants to come in, primarily aimed at the basketball parents. And then we have a couple of breakout sessions where we have a room. It would have to be in a separate room because the noise would be too distracting. But a small classroom is something where if someone's coming in and we say, well, at 1 o'clock and then at 2 o'clock there's a 20-minute presentation in classroom B, and there'll be one of the committee members there to basically answer questions and go over the kind of the idea of a scripted, these are the 5 things we've primarily been working on and that sort of a thing. Have it the same day, but get that offering. Because what I'm hearing, what I'm concerned about is missing that group of people. And I do know that we'll have another event in March, but if we're not successful in capturing people in March, I'm going to be a little bit more on the glass half empty in this situation. We really only have a couple more shots at this. That's the sense I'm getting. So that launching into the kind of the unknown, and I guess also with me, and this is my own personal opinion, and I think I've made it clear before, 206 responses to the initial survey did not thrill me as far as arriving at a consensus as to how we formulate our vision statement, but because I just think that's a little underpopulated. And so I was hopeful that this event in January would be a filler for that. And even if we came home with another 100 or 150 opinions to add to that, my comfort level would be higher. So I just throw that out there. You could combine having both events the same day, but just offer to people to come in, and we could publish this in advance. You know, there's a 20-minute presentation at 1 o'clock and at 2 o'clock in Classroom B for anyone who's interested. If nobody goes, nobody goes. But really all you'd have to do is consign to 1 or 2 committee members with a script.
Or let me ask too, if we're doing it this open house style format, I mean, we could do a 2-minute session with somebody and give them a general overview of it, or they could sit with us for whatever, 5 minutes, 6 minutes on that one station and go a little bit more in depth about whatever that activity and topic is. You know, they could spend however much time they wanted going through and get to the depth of what they wanted to do, if that's what they were there in order to do. And perhaps people that only have 10 or 15 minutes to go through can still at least get a general taste of what's going on and a sense of it.
So even though, I guess this is where I'm starting to fall, even though we may not have a lot of meat to offer them at this open house style, I think we will get a lot more people's attention, and we'll get those emails. Sort of thinking of that glass half empty scenario is that we offered the people an option to give us their opinions on in their comfort of their home, in their sweatpants, eating their guacamole and chips, right? And they didn't really take us up on that. So why would we be under the impression that they're going to leave the comfort of their home and come out and listen to us talk for a few hours?
Sure, I guess
Yeah.
that we don't know that.
No, and
but-
they could.
And maybe they could, and maybe we would only reach 25 people through that format. We'll reach 200 people through this other format. I'm just thinking about individuals that are interested in the plan, that have not had that opportunity, that say, oh yeah, there's an informational session available up at the school, and I don't have any kids in school, so I'm not going there for the basketball. I'm going there like a public hearing would be for anything else. I believe in this space next Monday. There is going to be an event where the internet provider is going to hold an informational session. And it would be interesting. I plan on going, but I would guess that that's probably not going to be an open house style. That's going to be a kind of a business presentation of what we're offering and what we're all about, and we're putting it out to you. And they also have an online survey, by the way, which I took the other day. So they're kind of that's how they're getting their information out. Maybe it will be an open house style, but my sense is it probably won't
No,
be.
it'll
probably
be a presentation.
A presentation.
Well, it's also to answer questions. Definitely. That's one of the biggest things. They want to find out what people want and want to get out of it, and to answer any questions on how we're going to approach using this, working with this vendor.
Absolutely, Kevin. And that's kind of, we're after the same thing. We want to know what people want.
Yeah, one thing I don't know is whether or not we can get a classroom
Yeah.
to do that. We can have this space because we control this space. And which is, yeah, exactly.
I think the only way we could do it in a hybrid style is where we choose 9 to 1 is the open house style, and 1 to 4 is the traditional style. I think that's probably the only way we could really break that out in a way that makes sense. If you think that's feasible, where the committee members take on the open house style with some materials, and then we have you for the formal, Is there some way we could handle that? I don't know, but it sounds to me like that's
I think that's the way to go.
more of the
Is it-
direction we'd like to lean in. I don't know if that's feasible on your end or thoughts on that. Frank, you.
As far as
No,
collecting people.
I think a double session is fine, and I think the afternoon session could amount to 3 different presentations of the same material, and let people know that we're going to be there. We're going to have an open house type setup where they can look at different aspects of the comprehensive plan, but at 1, 2, and 3, there'll be a 15-minute presentation of the overview of the comprehensive plan. And then they could go around and look at the different parts that we got set up within that hour and, find out what is going on. And then you might get a few more coming in at 2 o'clock to do the same thing, and at 3 o'clock. They're getting a time to come. They know if they come at 1 o'clock, they'll be out of there by 2. If they're coming at 2 o'clock, they're out of there by 3. If they're coming at 3 o'clock, they're out of there by 4. And you've had your chance to make the full presentation to them and have them also circulate through the open house portion of the program.
Seems like that level of effort would leave us all, I think, with a pretty good feeling about the different demographics
Right.
that we're trying to get at, and without leaving out the capitalizing on the basketball event and capturing that traffic, and at the same time doing something like Frank's talk in the afternoon.
It's the best of all worlds,
Yep.
Since
basically.
I think Kevin had a comment too.
Well, you might ask Bruce if you can use his conference room down there, which is also set up for Zoom. So you can get a lot of people in there and have some, displays and things like that if you need them. It was closed for public meetings, but he might have it open for something like this.
I think let's sit on it. I think we can figure out the final logistics. I think we need to think about it a little bit. I just want to be conscious of staff levels, town staff levels, and volunteers, because 9 to 4 is actually, you need time to set up, so it's actually 8:30 to 5. So you all have lives and other things to do on a Saturday as well. So making sure that we have at least a few committee members throughout the day. We just don't want to spread ourselves too thin, is what I'm saying.
Maybe, if this all seems like too much, we have someone who's there, who's just collecting emails during the basketball time. If this is all too much, like if trying to do the open house and the more formal stuff is just all too much, I'm sure 1 or 2 of us might be willing to stand there for a little shift and at least have a fact sheet to hand out and get an email address, and that be the end of it. If this seems like it's too much to do all of it, I don't know. I mean, if we keep sitting on it, it's going to be upon us before we know it, too.
I like the idea of making it a lot more informal in the morning.
Yeah.
Open house style, and even if the afternoon is taking the fact sheet, and which I think is a good idea because people can then take it with them, and we're all well versed. 1 and 2:30, and we leave those times open. We advertise for those times. I like Frank said, I think gets the best of both worlds, but I don't think you guys need to spend as much time at the open house. I'm happy to volunteer the morning. Because I think it would be a good opportunity, but we kind of bookmark the morning as the kind of crazy. And I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, throughout the day, there
It'll
are
be
fewer
slower.
teams, so it will
Yeah.
be slower. So
Yeah,
I
so
think-
you're looking at probably 1 to 4 will be the slowest part of the day. Sometimes it's double header with teams. Sometimes, it's a little bit lighter. So it would make sense to have maybe something more formal. But if you want data collection and people who you might not capture, the mornings will be the best time for that.
we can even say, if you want more, come back. We've got a 1 o'clock. We've got a 2:30.
There'll be a
Maybe
presentation.
we can have some committee members who will volunteer to staff the morning, even if we have a couple people do it in shifts. And we can see how comfortable you feel with I mean, we could potentially, give you some of the things to start to help set up, and people can start putting stickers on a map, if you feel comfortable with that. And so, yeah, I think originally I was thinking like, well, North Star will set it up and then we'll hand it over to the committee, but maybe we do it the other way around.
Opposite way, where we're setting it up.
Yeah, and
Getting it
having
primed.
the open house in the morning, and then in the afternoon we can have a more formal.
I think we will get the best bang for our buck by doing 2
Yep.
and making a
Yep.
big commitment and ruining all of our Saturdays.
Saturday. Yep.
But hopefully it'll be the one Saturday, and then we've got a lot of interest, we've hit a lot of people, and then that will make March hopefully more successful.
Good.
So I think we're all in consensus to move forward with the hybrid plan.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, and I know we're going to talk about snacks and things in January, but I do want to throw out that Joe is in possession of a Sam's card. And
Oh. Are you
yeah.
volunteering?
And I am volunteering him, but I did get his permission. It's here in writing if anyone likes to know.
That's true. That's true.
But he also has a popcorn machine.
That's exciting.
Yeah, so we
Yep, I can do that.
we can do some stuff like that, because if Joe uses his Sam's card and whatnot, we can charge it back to the
Okay,
CompPlan, so.
great.
Good.
I think so. All right.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, everybody.
Joe.
We'll see you
Thanks, Joe.
January 20th.
Here we go.
All right.
Could we take Kevin out of order too?
Yes, I'm okay with taking Kevin out of order. Okay, so we're gonna skip to a little bit of new business and talk about technology.
So Sue, can you enable screen
Yes.
sharing for me?
Let's see. No, I don't want to share me.
Thanks for taking notes.
Yeah, it's sharing. Okay, you should be able to share now, I think. Yay.
Okay, now hopefully you see the main slide or the first slide in the
Yes.
group. So obviously technology is where my heart lies, and it's always been there for improving the community. And we got involved, Raymond did, in 2015, as you can see, quite a long time ago, as things go. And been working on trying to get the best possible communication for everybody in the community in our area developed. And so Wyndham had actually taken the lead back in 2015 and engaged a company called Tilson to study what existed for broadband service in the area, and what could possibly be done to improving those services. So as things went along between 2015 and 2020, Wyndham formed a community broadband coalition, and that's when Raymond got involved. And that was Gray, Raymond, Standish, St. Joseph's, and Wyndham. And that, moved into a community broadband thing called Lakes Region Broadband Partnership. And things were going along quite well. We were meeting very regularly. And so at that point, Wyndham had the money to involve another company called Axiom, which is a broadband developer and provider in Maine. And they came together with our committee and got a lot of information. We did a lot of the same type of research that is happening with the plan that you guys are trying to develop now. And so they developed a plan, and that was presented. And this plan was not for broadband for everybody. It was to get the major backbones of fiber in place so they could deliver really good service for everybody eventually. So that came out in 2018 with the major backbone segments, and if you can see, that was the plan in the orange on the left. And from there, Axiom kept meeting with us, and we kept going on through things. But at some point, there was a lot of politics involved, especially in Wyndham. A lot of people said, well, we don't need this, there's no need for that. And so things slowed down a little bit, and Axiom submitted an updated cost plan in 2020. And shortly after that, because of the politics, the group kind of just dissolved, and which is pretty sad because we put in, over that 5-year period, a lot of work, gathered a lot of information, and it just kind of went by the wayside. So at that point, we were still really wanting to, and I forgot to mention that we had started to look at GWI, just Raymond alone, because we could see the writing on the wall of the other coalition. And so then we said, okay, well, maybe we have to go it alone, and it would be nice to do it together and have everybody on the same bandwagon. But like I said, that fell apart, so we kind of dropped that. And then Cumberland County, because of the huge interest in everybody now getting into a better broadband situation and trying to deliver, service to everybody, not just the people that can afford it, but a good service at a good price and everybody having equal access. So Cumberland County has done an excellent job, and they formed a committee called CoLab, the Cumberland Oxford Lakes Area Broadband Initiative. And it started out with quite a few more towns than you see here, which are now Casco, Naples, Sebago, Standish, and Raymond. Making everybody was really interested, but then everybody says, oh, it's going to cost too much, and we can't afford that. And and it just, which really bugs me, because you can't afford not to have people have equal access to the best possible communications, because communication is one of the things that every community is built on. Good communications, good public service, public safety, good roads. But communications, being able to call somebody when you need them, to do any number of tasks, everything depends on really good communications. So we ended up with these 5 towns, and we're really moving along quite well with that. We developed a huge RFP, which was very much similar to the one that Bangor put out. It's a highly technical RFP, because a lot of the towns have put things out where they rely on the vendor to come up with what they would like to provide us. So we turned around and did it the opposite way. We said we wanted the vendor to supply what we would like, which is doing it the correct way. So the RFP was developed, and if anybody's interested in that, I can get you a copy of that. We put it out for responses to anybody that was interested in, replying to it. I think we got 5 or 6 good responses, and then we looked at those and ranked all the different areas that we had put out to see how people would respond. And based on the rankings, and one of the things that we said is we really want to work with a company that's interested in keeping our interests that are local and will not be just a big corporation, based in some other country or based in some other state. So we got a really good commitment and the best response from Sebago Fiber. And so we, after looking at all the stuff, we chose Sebago Fiber to start working. And right now, Sebago Fiber has actually got to the point where, with the town of Sebago, the selectmen over there have approved their fiber proposal to put in a dark fiber network backbone for the municipal end, and using that backbone to build out to people in the community. So that's where that stands right now, and we are working right now with Sebago Fiber, and as was mentioned earlier, there's going to be a meeting on Monday to explore with the community, the people having questions about what's going on, and why all of a sudden is Raymond promoting this company? And there's a lot of background, and we've been working on it for, 3 years, and I think this is going to be an excellent companion for us to work with. So when CoLab did this, the goal was to provide, the affordable, reliable, the best high-speed broadband that we could get, and for not only for in the town, but for the small businesses, large businesses, and the municipality. So we looked at those, and this is what the statement of purpose that we put out, and it's all in the RFP, and it about 3 months of work to get this together. Oops, going backward here. My mouse is really, there we go. So in order to understand these things, and people throw around these terms a lot, I just thought I'd come up with a little primer here on what some of these terms mean, because everybody's saying this and that and the other thing. And so bandwidth, is, everybody says bandwidth in bits per second and what that means, and people really don't understand what that means. For instance, well, what does bits per second mean? Well, what is a bit? So if you look at a character, any character like the letter T, it takes 8 bits, which is a byte, to make that letter up and transmit it over the network. So when you say bits per second, if you divide that by 8, you'd get sort of the raw capacity of how many characters per second you could send. But there's a lot of extra overhead in that, so you really should divide it by 10. And then you'd say, well, I'm not really getting as much speed as I thought I was, even though I'm saying I'm getting gigabits. When you cut that in half, or by 8, and then you cut that again, it really isn't as fast as you think it is. And right now, you look at the state and the federal government, they've defined standards for what a broadband connection is. But if you look at the rest of the world, and you will see that 1 gigabit per second symmetrical connection, and symmetrical means I can send data upstream or I can receive data to my place as, with the same speed, and that's really important. Because when you get to sending or backing up your audio and video files and things like that to the cloud, so that when your house burns down, you still have all your data, you will see that you would be very happy to be able to have the 1 gigabit per second symmetrical fiber. The latency means when they deliver these packets, and so each packet contains about 1,500 bytes in it, and so those bytes made up the bits. They come down per packet, and they send millions and millions of these packets, obviously, to make up one. Maybe it's a movie, maybe it's a document, and so the latency is the time it takes a data packet to be sent, and then the receiver says, okay, I got the packet, and the next packet's being sent, and so forth. Jitter is if there's a inconsistent delay between a packet arrival. In other words, one packet gets there, and let's say in a second, the second packet takes 2 seconds, the third packet gets there in half a second. They can get out of order, and if you're doing voice over the internet, or if you're doing video conferencing over the internet, when the packets get out of order, there's a delay in putting the whole image or word, or, audio together, and then you will have a very inconsistent reception and in that kind of transmission. So those are really important terms that everybody should just be very familiar with when all these vendors are saying what they can deliver and when they can deliver it. For instance, you need to have a service level agreement saying we want these packets to always have this latency, under this latency, and under this jitter, so that you can have a reliable, good network. So these are the things that we came up with for the minimum network service levels for the different types of delivery. So for residential, we said we wanted to have a passive optical network. And what that means is over a single fiber, multiple transmissions to multiple people can take place, so it's multiplexed. And we said we want everything to be, a minimum symmetrical 1 gigabit per second with a latency less than 30 milliseconds and a jitter less than 15. And if you look at the term down below that IP, which is the Internet Protocol, we want to have version 4, which is the very first one basically that was put out there that was reliable. It is very old, and everybody says, well, we can't get addresses anymore because we've used those up. So the address space, the number of physical addresses that can be allocated out, has almost run out for IP version 4. And that's why when you try to get a version 4 address, say if you have a small business, they charge you quite a bit for it. IP version 6 now has made it so there are trillions of available addresses. So they don't charge you for the IP version 6. But we're in the process now, at least for the town government, of starting to transition to that IP version 6. But you want your network to support that. So for businesses, we said we want an active optical network. It means dedicated fiber to your business. So you would have no chance of being impacted by anybody else on the line, and the ability to go up to 10 gigabits per second. Because when you're transferring large files, for instance, this meeting tonight, I'll be transferring this file from the portable over to my office. I'll be working on it, and then I'll be transmitting it up to the internet to put on YouTube, where we store all of our meetings. So that takes, it's easy for me to send it downhill from the town, but when I try to send it from here, my connection, which is through Spectrum Business, is slow. And it takes, hours for me to transmit one file for a meeting up to YouTube. So people think that 10 gigabits per second is a lot, but it's not. So we wanted the vendor to have that capability for any of the small businesses that do large data transfers. And the same thing when you're with the municipality. What we wanted there is we want to have a dark fiber network, which means the town government would have its own fiber, manage its own fiber. It wouldn't be responsible for repairing it or anything, but the government would be completely secure and be able to manage the speeds and between all of the buildings that the government has. So, like even the Tassel Top, Sand and Salt Building, all of our municipal locations will be connected by this fiber network. And you can see the specs for that we definitely want to have a fiber ring, which gives the redundant pass to no matter where you cut it, and we'll have a slide in a few minutes on that, and redundant pass to the internet service provider. So there's a difference between the physical provider and the internet services provider. So the internet services provider gives you links out to the internet so you can access things like the YouTubes and the Twitters and all that stuff. The physical network service provider, which should be separate, gives you the ability to let some ISP give you that data. So we want to have the physical network be Raymond's network and have control over that. Okay, so what we're talking about is fiber, and why does everybody want fiber? Because we had a lot of discussion on this committee about whether we'd have, why can't you use, Wi-Fi technology, or some type of other wireless technology, or why can't you use, Spectrum, which has, the coax, technology, and it's not just as good, because they say, it's just as good, and the differences are that you just can't even comprehend how fast the fiber offers you the speeds. You can go right now up to, they've tested fiber, the type of, almost the type of fiber that we would be using, up to a terabit per second. So the fiber is much more reliable. You don't have the electronic, interference, electromagnetic interference. It can rain on it. It's not penetrable by water. Even if the water got into the fiber, it would not affect it. It's just so much better than any of the other wired things. Future proofing. like, we just said, the bandwidth can go well into the future. And that's something that we, on this committee, looked at saying, yeah, we need to have better communication right now, but what about the future? If we put something in place now and spend, a good deal of money of doing that, is it going to be usable in the future, or are we just going to have to turn around and do this again? The scalability, like you said, we'll start off with speeds of 1 gigabit per second, but you can easily upgrade that by fixing the fiber itself can stay in place. You put new electronics on the other ends, and you can keep using that same fiber over and over and over again for faster speeds and more people being able to use that same fiber. So there's no question over the other wired technologies that fiber is way better. Okay. So, whoops. Am I going the wrong way here? Okay, the wireless technologies is the same thing. There's obviously no signal interference when you're using fiber. The reliability is you can't beat that, and the weather and other physical obstructions obviously affect wireless. The leaves on the trees in the summertime, so you can't get a really good signal all the time with any type of the wireless transmissions. Even the Starlink that's for the satellite, because you do have some weather factors that do affect that. For instance, we have, for my office, we use Starlink as a backup to Spectrum. And it's not bad, but it's still no way would be the equivalent of having fiber. The latency is, it's the fastest method of transmitting data through it's faster than radio waves. It's faster than going through copper. So, fiber optic cable is the fastest way to get data anywhere. Security is very good. You can't, unless you actually cut the fiber and break into it, you can't tell, or you can't, intercept any data physically without doing a cut of the fiber. All the other types of anything that's, any other wired technology, you can tell what's going through it by not cutting it. So in the same thing with wireless, you can always pick up that, and even if it's encrypted, which everything should be, the current methodology for encrypting is pretty good, but there are computers out there now that are able to, using different technologies, to decrypt stuff fairly quickly. So this is way back when we were working with Wyndham at the start of things, about 7 years ago. I actually did these tests for the different types of data. And it was pretty interesting because it's not what, the mainstream publishes, and the mainstream being the vendors like Spectrum and other vendors that are trying to sell you the service. Because what they don't tell you is when you go out to stream, let's say I want to stream a movie. If my streaming is, the capability of my bit rate is very, very low, they're going to compress that data, and you're not going to get a very good movie on your TV or your music, or you're downloading. I mean, everything is going to take longer and may have, errors involved with it. So these are the pretty interesting things that, if you look it down through that list, you'll see a lot of things that people don't think about. And here's what they take, the bit rate in megabits per second per one person doing those items. And if you add them all up, and if you had, a spouse or a couple of kids at home and doing some streaming and stuff, you easily go over what the state and the federal government say you should have for, a minimum bit rate, and calling it broadband. So our committee said, this is not broadband what the state says, and what the federal government says. And so if you look, one of the issues we had is, are we going to be able to get any of this money that's been put out there? And you're only going to get any money from the federal government or the state if you live either in a non-served or underserved area. So if you meet the state's requirement for broadband, you're not going to get anything, which is one of the issues that we had, with trying to get new service in place, because everybody thought, oh, look at all this money that the federal government's putting into broadband. But it's not for people that live in a place where the definition doesn't meet what they say. If anybody has any questions about stuff like that, just give, or you can wait till I'm done. So I think this is one of the last one. Yeah, this is the last slide. So this is specifically what we're trying to do in Raymond, is create this dark fiber ring. And what it will do is enable all the municipal locations to have 10 gigabits per second connectivity. And it's basically a private network for the town government. Much more secure, extremely high speed. Right now we do backups off-site from the town office to the fire station, from the fire station to the town office. So, because we have 2 server locations, so that we can make sure that if there is a disaster, we can recover all of our services within 2 or 3 days. But the only way to get those backups is to have a high-speed network. So we're paying a considerable amount of money between the town office and the fire station just for and this is in quotations, a dedicated line from Spectrum. But it really isn't dedicated, because the line is a fiber line that runs down to, I think, probably somewhere in Wyndham, and then comes back again, and it goes through their switches. So it's not really, again, a private line, and it's really not fast enough. But we're paying on the order, I think, $600 to $800 a month just to be able to do our backups for disaster recovery. If we put this ring in, you can cut the ring, in one place, and then there'll be no loss of service whatsoever. The only time that you'd think it'd be bad is if you had a really, really bad storm and it got cut in 2 places, then some place may be isolated out of that ring. But one of the things that we're going to do with this ring also is, when they put the fiber in, they're going to put in maybe 128 fibers in the line, and we'll get some of those, and then they'll use those other lines along this ring to build out to the other locations for the community to be using for their service. So as part of this thing that they're doing on Monday, they want to find out what the interest is and where the interest lies, so that they can say, we'd be willing to, as a corporation, put this much money into the line because we know we'll make some back. And what we're looking for is as much public interest in doing this, because I foresee that hopefully at some point Raymond will be completely fiber to the premise, because that was one of the things that we said when the CoLab committee was formed, is we want every single house, premise, business, town building to have high-speed fiber service. So, and that's where we're at right now. Anybody have any questions on any of these slides?
Peter?
Yeah, Kevin, just a couple of questions. First of all, with this fiber system versus the cable, my understanding is that in what this committee is primarily interested with, and I think he answered it as far as fiber and future proofing, what we're talking about is at least 10 to 20 years down the road. So the sense that I'm getting is with a fiber-based system, it is better future-proofed. I think that's the term.
It is indefinite. There is no degradation of the fiber. I mean, there's been fiber around for 50 years, and that fiber is still in service with no degradation at all. And like we said, the amount of, the only thing that has to be replaced to increase the capacity and speed are the endpoints, the electronics.
Yep. And as far as what I'm interested in mostly, and certainly, you know, we've got businesses here that absolutely rely on the internet for them working. But my understanding, and certainly correct me if I'm wrong here, is that it's something in the neighborhood of 50-50 megabit, not megabit, 50-50 megabits per second on a symmetrical system. So that means that your uploads and your downloads are the same speed. It is necessary for home use. In other words, if I want to, my employer's in Boston and I'm living in Raymond. Is that accurate? You need 50-50?
You would need a minimum of that. What we're saying is businesses should have a 1 gigabit per second symmetrical. Now, there's going to be options for paying for, I think, the way they're promoting it is 100 over 100 would be the minimum speed that they would offer.
And that would be offered for residential.
Residential, I think you can get up to, they're saying 1 gigabit per second if you're willing to pay it, and I'm not sure what the price is. And they will also offer 2 gigabits per second.
Okay. And if I understand it correctly, Sebago did get money, but that, as you explained, is because they had no real system in place at all?
That's because they had underserved and non-served no service in certain areas. That gave them quite a bit of money to, you know, to start their system going.
And I assume Raymond is not in that.
None of the other towns met that criteria.
Yep. And so what I heard this described as would be a kind of a public-private venture?
So what we're doing is we'd be working with them, and when I mentioned like the ring, the dark fiber ring, we would be like leasing. We would own the ring through a lease, and that would be our property by leasing it. And they would be putting X amount of dollars, and I think they put in something like $200,000 into the town of Sebago initial startup. Because they're not doing a ring, but they're doing a dark fiber linear, I guess this hasn't published, but you could probably look on their site, but it's quite a long, a couple miles at least, line that captures most of their municipal buildings.
So as far as when we're looking at, when this committee's looking at such things as housing, and the fact that one of the things that might attract people to locate into Raymond might be access to a high-speed fiber symmetrical internet that they could get for a residential situation where they would not be commuting to Portland or Lewiston or Boston and make it feasible to live here. That's not so much financially feasible at this point in time, given the system we have.
Right. So what the plan was, Sebago wants to, and this makes sense from a business standpoint if you look at it, they want to build out from that dark fiber ring into areas where they will get the highest take first. Their goal is to service every house, every business. But in order to do it economically, and this is where each town really wanted to do the whole thing at once and may possibly do bonding and stuff like that so that you could do it right, because that would be the right way to do it, to have everybody get it almost immediately. But there was no reality in that situation, as you well know, trying to do something that large all at once. So the most cost-effective way is to put the service in small steps where the highest take rate is. And as people see this, and this is what happened in Fry Island, they started putting the service in over there, and within a year, everybody wanted it. And so they built out, and the entire island has fiber to every house now in business.
And so, Kevin, I understand then that really what this translates into is the fact that the municipality would become the internet service provider?
No, not at all. No, we would only have, the only thing that we would have control over, I mean, we're having the agreement for there's service level agreements, which is different than no other vendors that offer service level agreements. And we would have portal for the town office would be able to get onto the municipal portal and see what's going on with anything in the town and be able to look at it so that, but we would not own the infrastructure. We would be leasing basically the infrastructure.
Then would it be, is it Sebago Fiber would then basically be, let's say if we were to go with them, would they then become Charter?
They would be the equivalent of Charter, except for service level agreements and it's just, I mean, there's really, there's no comparison. I mean, it really is a partnership of working with another vendor. And if you look at, and I don't have that with me right now, but what their terms are going to be, and I think they have it on their site if you look at it, what they would be doing as far as working with the community and not being a, Spectrum. I hate saying that, but working with a Spectrum where you can't really work with, you take what they give you and you take the prices and that's it.
Sure. Thank you. That's very helpful.
Are there any other further questions for Kevin? It's possible you may have lost one or two of us.
Well, yeah, my other thing is solar. We need more solar.
More solar. Lots of good info, Kevin, though, no doubt, and a critical thing. We all gonna. Internet's
yeah, I
not
mean,
going to go away.
Everything is, every time you do anything, I mean, if you use your cell phone, I don't use my cell phone using the cell phone towers. I use it with my internet service, the Wi-Fi part of it. Because Raymond is horrible. So again, everything we do, every call we make, every time we want to buy something or research something or anything, it's, we want to make a doctor's appointment. We want to have the doctor's appointment online. Every little device in our house, the Internet of Things is now connected to, up in the sky, the cloud, it's, and if you want to do that in a secure, fast, and easily usable way, you want to go with a vendor that's willing to work with you and has, a good help desk and that responds to your, problems. And that's one of the things that we really rated these guys hard on. And Sebago came out, almost on top. GWI was another one that we had looked at, and they were very good, but their methodology is to go all in all at once, and we couldn't afford that.
Yeah, part of my concern is, and I've heard this estimate, I don't know how accurate it is, but that with the rate of new devices coming online, that you can expect that there's about a 10% increase in the requirement for capacity every year. So that would mean in 10 years, we would need 100% the capacity that we have now. Is that even close to being accurate?
I mean, that's probably a little more, but we would have that capacity and more if you go the fiber methodology. And that's the nice thing about fiber. I mean, like I said, it blows your mind if you think that you could, in a single piece of glass that's the size of your hair, could put through a terabit of data in a second. I mean, it's amazing.
Question for North Star: how many towns, rural in nature like Raymond, have internet issues like us, and to the level of incorporating it into their CompPlan and having it be an elevated item for attention?
Have to be honest, this is not my area of expertise. I think, I'm trying to think of some of the Bristols and Tremonts, but I don't know if...
Yeah, it wasn't really brought up.
I don't think either of us have worked on a plan where it was brought up. But like I said, this is not Sam and I's area of expertise.
Yeah, my understanding in the research is that the the model that Kevin's talking about is very similar to FDR's model for electrical extensions in the 30s, where basically they got electrical co-ops together because the feds simply weren't going to build the infrastructure. So what happened was they developed electrical co-ops in order to extend electricity. And so in a very crude way, this is kind of the same idea.
Yeah, there are a lot of models. In Vermont, they actually have that type of co-op for, broadband co-ops. And it has worked out very well there. But doing that and getting all the towns to agree to do that, and the biggest thing is fighting against the other incumbent ISPs. Because if you don't have government backing of that, you kind of lose the battle when the ISPs, and they've done that in Maine, come in and tell you, do a lot of false information on what you're trying to do. And we may even see that here in Raymond at some point once we make the commitment. We haven't seen it yet in any of the towns that we've been working with, but it has happened in several towns in Maine where the incumbents have come in and, put forth a lot of false information.
Right.
And Kevin, I had another time offline, I'd love to talk to you about your thoughts about Title II and the decisions coming up in the spring of next year, but that'll be for another topic of conversation.
Right.
Kevin, are there any advantages to the town owning the network? Not leasing, but actually owning it, stringing it themselves?
Okay, own it. Well, you could do that. You could have somebody string it. You could own it, and you could then put out. And that's one of the things we looked at, whether or not we wanted to have, a vendor, us own it completely, and a vendor run it. So we looked at that, and the cost, again, the initial cost for us to get into it, we wouldn't have the vendor at that point willing to put, some money into the game early on, which would help us out getting this going without so much initial expense. And that is really what stopped any of the other models, was the initial expense of getting this going, and competing with the incumbent is really hard. Because there's a lot of people going to say, oh, I'm fine with Spectrum. Well, yeah, but we're going to give you better service, and it's going to be more reliable, and you're going to be able to talk to people about that service, and it's going to be better for the future. And we just all of that. I mean, everybody agreed that definitely we wanted to work with this local vendor, and GWI was a close second, but because of their model, we just couldn't afford it.
Kevin, do you have a sense for what, rates are going to be like compared to what people are paying now for internet?
If you go to Sebago Fiber's site, I think it's sebagofiber.net, you will see their published rates, what they expect to offer their service for. And I think it's equivalent, I'm paying for, and this is a small business, paying $250 a month for 600 megabits per second down, and maybe, 30 or 40 megabits up per second. I'll be able to get 2 gigabits per second symmetrical for $200 a month. It's not even in the same ballpark. I'll be saving so much money and getting so much better performance. It's just, so in that, but it's not as, the difference is not that big when you start getting down to the slower, the end users for the residents. But I still think you're going to get a much better service level for the same cost, maybe even a little less.
And Kevin, I did go on their website and look for the residential rates and compared it to what I'm paying for Spectrum now, and they were about equivalent for residential. But I got more capacity. I got greater speed in my uploads and all of that stuff.
Kevin, do you have a ballpark figure for what it would cost if you went with the GWI?
If we were to bond, and this was for all 5 towns, it was about, I think, $10 million for all 5 towns together. Because they wanted to, it wasn't like one town at a time, it was the whole group, again, so that they could capture the highest take rate for them. And they were willing to build out fiber to the entire thing and put the whole thing in, but it would be about $10 million.
I mean, having fiber to the schools would probably be a great idea with the use of technology.
Right now there is fiber to the schools, but they're paying and it's not that fast, and they're paying a lot of money for it. Now, the nice thing about this, there's one thing that's good is the library, which still could keep it for now anyway. They get free fiber, symmetrical gigabit fiber. So that's the university network provides that to the libraries.
Nice.
And how would the actual installation work? Are these coming in overhead on the power lines, or these buried cables?
Yeah, I mean, I wish, again, the optimal way, and then you don't have to worry about having possibility of 2 cuts, but everything is, overhead. And that was one of the advantages that Sebago Fiber had. They already have the licenses to work with the vendors for all of the overhead poles.
What would be the cost using Sebago?
Well, okay, our initial cost for the dark fiber is, again, depending on how people respond, and say, let's say they have 400 people that sign up for taking it around that ring, then they'll probably throw in maybe $100,000 to $200,000 into developing the ring, because they can see a pretty easy payback take rate on that. If nobody responds to it, then we're going to be stuck with having that initial ring build out, which would be it's going to be somewhere in the $600,000 to $800,000 range, because it's like a 14-mile ring of fiber around Panther Pond.
Well, it sounds like the comp plan ought to have some language around studying this and urging and supporting Kevin in his research and work.
I think communications, again, having everybody have the ability to communicate with any other person or any other group or any other location. And another thing I forgot to mention, so fire rescue is going to have a great payback with this too, because right now they have multiple towers, and the communication between towers is pretty bad in Raymond because of all the hills. And in order to get really good communication, you've got to build, a $500,000 or $600,000 tower, high enough up to get all the rest of the towers. What Sebago Fiber is doing with other towns is starting to build the fiber directly to the towers. So when a call goes out, every single tower gets it, and you have complete coverage. And they actually work with, what they do is they work with the town next to you, and then so that the towers from that town get the overlap. And it's really, they've been working with Bruce, and he is kind of anxious to get that in place. And so it will be a big benefit for public safety.
It might be a new chapter that we need to add to the comp plan. And
Well,
Kevin,
yeah, I mean, if you talk about transportation and roads, I think communication is right up there.
communication.
Absolutely. Kevin, how long do you see it taking to build out to the entire town? I know it depends on how many people are going to jump on it, but I can't believe there aren't going to be the vast majority of people in town jumping on something like this.
Right.
Well, it took a year to do all of Fry Island, and that's quite a bit smaller, but I think maybe in 2 to 3 years you could have, a complete build out. I mean, it would probably take 6 months to build the dark fiber ring, once it's been put in place, the engineering and stuff. He's got this is another benefit to it. He may be a small company starting out, but he has his own trucks, his own service people. He's hired some really good technical people to aid in this network. So I'm very convinced that he, is going to do what he says he will and do a good job. I mean, the proof is in Fry Island, and they've done it there, so he can expand that out and keep going. I mean, we were initially concerned with, well, how are you going to provide all the tech support for this? And is there going to be a call center? And what are your response times going to be? And so we did get all that information, and we were, again, all the towns were satisfied and voted to use, him as the provider. And like I said, Sebago is already, I mean, they'll probably be building the network. They are starting in the next 5 or 6 months, their dark fiber network and expanding out.
Kevin, thank you so much for your time tonight. I think just in interest of the rest of our agenda, we probably need to move on for tonight, but really appreciate your time and educating us on this.
Anytime.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
All right.
A lot of good
Good
stuff.
night.
Good night.
All right, so let's make a really quick shift and talk about public outreach.
Yeah. Okay. So, what we've been sort of calling listening sessions. Sam and I have been doing some direct outreach to local businesses, road associations, and lake associations, as well as some other community organizations. We've been in touch with a few people, including the Sebago Lakes Region Chamber of Commerce, a few summer camp owners, a few road associations. We also talked to the Raymond Waterways Protective Association, and I've been emailing back and forth with someone from Sabre Yachts who promises they will call me soon. So we're hoping to just sort of keep nudging some people. I think we're getting some good, like, very specific feedback that I think once we get to the part of the plan where we start talking about goals and policies and things, I think some of this information will be very useful. I don't know if anyone else has had a chance to reach out to any other groups in town at this point.
I did a PTO session
Nice.
a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, and if you got any feedback, you can share.
I mean, they were very, they had, mentioned trying to cooperate with us for our outreach event and stuff, and, put on kind of a simultaneous event that could occupy the kids while we were doing the meeting. Maybe for the March one that might be appropriate. But I gave them the information about the survey, and asked them to spread the word.
Great.
I took the liberty to send Russ Hutchinson an email at Crescent Lake Watershed Association, just alerting to our date on the 20th of January.
Okay.
From 1 to 4, I took the liberty of saying. So we'll see what he gets, see what, if they come back. I said we could provide information to them to help stir some attendance, hopefully, from their group. We had that great presentation from their vice president, I think it was, that came. I think where that overlap goes is their mission is water quality protection, and that comes also as a side benefit of conservation efforts, land conservation efforts. And Russ was on the Conservation Commission back in the 10s and helped out with the Community Forest Project. So certainly Crescent Lake has benefited from, and will continue to benefit from, 330 odd acres that won't be developed in that watershed. So we'll see what they say.
Have we reached out to all the other sorry, something keeps making me sneeze. All the other town boards and committees, like the Conservation Commission, Planning Board? I know Peter's gone to the Select Board.
Yep, planning board is covered.
Okay.
Conservation Commission really
Doesn't exist. Okay. I only know it's on the website. I don't know it's active.
It exists on the website, but
Yeah.
it's on break.
Okay. So do we feel like we've reached all the other town committees? We're not missing anybody?
We probably are. I mean, is there still a recycling committee and not so much anymore?
Not really. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, they exist, but they haven't met in at least 8 months.
So then it is possible.
Isn't there a Raymond Beautification Committee?
That's the other one we were wondering about.
Yeah, that's. They don't really have meetings per se. They do what
Okay.
they call walk and weed in the summertime and whatnot, but it isn't a group that gets together and talks about,
Okay.
like, excuse me. Yeah, there's something in the air.
Right.
Frank?
I can give Sharon a call and talk to her to see if they want to have some input.
Okay.
I think they'd be a good committee to at least invite to take part in this. So I'll give her a call and talk to her.
Okay.
I have a couple of personal connections I've talked to about talking to. Had a busy month, so
Yeah.
hopeful that within the next few weeks we'll make it happen.
I think we also wanted to see if anyone had any connections to like any senior groups, or we've reached out to Age Friendly Raymond, but you know, I know there's a senior living place here, but anything like that to make sure we're reaching that demographic.
Do they have like I wonder if they have like a community room there, or if there would be some sort of a opportunity to get those people in one place at one time?
Do we have anybody that knows anybody that lives there?
They do have a room, they do have a community room.
They do.
Okay. I mean, that could be something that we could, if a committee member wanted to volunteer to go over there, we could like help try and set that up with whoever manages the place.
I'd do that.
Okay. We'll try and see. I might have to reach out to Sue. We'll see what we can find out. And
Is that the one on Levy Lane? The apartment building there?
On 85,
Behind Good Life.
behind Good Life.
I think
Yeah.
it's behind Good
Yeah.
Life. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's Levy
Is
Lane.
it a Vesta? Is it, who is
think
it?
it's Vesta.
A Vesta?
I think it's a
Yeah,
Vesta,
it's-
yeah.
A Vesta.
Okay, Kate, did you have anything further for that one?
I think that's it. So yeah, if people can just keep reaching out to people in the intervening time before the event. I think it'll be important to do another push kind of after the holidays, because I think a lot of people will forget what we tell them between now and
Yeah.
Christmas.
Is there anything that content-wise that we can be adding? I know you made a Facebook page or an event
Yeah, I
or
did make a
something.
Facebook page, and I can
Maybe
post some. I
there's-
did post a few things on there, but I can get back on it, do some more.
Yeah, maybe even if we're just kind of weekly putting out, I don't know, pose a question for people to just think about, or they could even comment on it, you know.
We do have 64 followers on it.
Hey, that's pretty good. That's a quarter of our response rate.
Can they give us emails?
That's real.
Maybe,
You know
yeah.
what you could post a link to is to sign up for the email list.
Okay, yep.
There, I can email you the link directly, but it's on the homepage right now.
Okay.
So it's just like a direct thing to sign up for the email list.
All right. I'll put some more effort to it. Moving on to vision statement. I believe last meeting we had talked about the vision statement and had some ideas and input.
Committee is still working on the vision statement, and we'll get you an update within the next, I'd say within the next 2 weeks. Had to make sure we spend some additional time on that.
Peter?
Go ahead, Peter. Sorry.
Yeah, I know the time is short here, so I'm just going to quickly just make some comments. In no way do I think that the work group hasn't done a superior job in the wording of the draft. And I do understand that it is an evolving document. So as we get more input, then it may change the vision statement a little bit. Which is why I'm very interested in acquiring more information. But I would just say, in looking at the vision statement from 2004, there were two things that jumped out at me. One line was, "The cornerstone of this foundation that we have inherited and upon which our future will be built is human respect." And then there's another line, "We seek a fair and just community where all citizens have equal rights." So I just note that in the draft, there was really no mention of whether or not we're a welcoming community or not, or whether or not one of our goals is inclusivity, including everyone. So I just throw that out. And in using North Star's basic assessment of the 206 responses we got, what I found was this. From number 3, what is the biggest threat to quality of life in Raymond? Respondents are most concerned about too much growth and development followed by worsening traffic in town, as well as conversion of homes into short-term rentals that bring in more tourists and change the dynamics of the neighborhoods. And then it goes on to say that also a threat to quality of life is changing attitudes from the influence of new residents. And so I take all that and I look at what the work group has put together, and that they don't have things like diversity or inclusivity or welcoming. And I think you're spot on, given the information we have. So that's not mentioned in the draft at all. And I'm just saying that might be something that we want to think about, when in fact our guidance is that our mission statement or our vision is going to be based on the data that we collect as a consensus in surveying the community. So one other point was that under 8, Raymond in 2040, respondents were given the open-ended prompt. So in 2040, Raymond should be, the number 1 response was the same as it is today. So I take that to mean status quo. So if that's in fact what the data is showing us at this point, then we really don't want to be, according to the consensus of this, we don't want to be changing anything. We want everything to stay just as it is. And then number 3 under that, the number 8, Raymond in 2040 should be welcoming and inclusive. There were 27 responses of the 206 that included that response. And so I think, once again, that supports where we have the draft statement right now. It's kind of like a bumper sticker I saw the other day on a car, and it simply said, "Welcome to Maine. Now go home." Yeah. So, I mean, if that is the consensus in the town, I think we should say it. Because that's, and as far as under the last, under the ratings, 2014 versus 2023, it said, respondents' desire for Raymond to stay the same as it is today as a preference for this stable, high-quality life to continue. So I agree that the stable quality life should continue. I just don't know that I guess the consensus is, once again, that we should stay the same. So I just throw that out there for some thoughts when the work group is completed their second draft of this. And also, if I'm not mistaken, this is a living document. This will evolve as we get more input, which is all the more reason I'm very hopeful that we get a lot more input that maybe changes some of my sense and North Star's basically interpretation of the data that we've got so far.
So are you saying, Pete, that if we only got 10% of the respondents that encouraged welcoming and I'll say diversity and inclusion, that's not a strong enough signal to have that be a foremost motive or a foremost item in our plan? Or
what it's telling me is that it really, right now, if my understanding is that the vision is based on the data that we get, then no, that we shouldn't be making statements like we're a welcoming, inclusive town. That's not really the message we've got through this data so far, for me anyway. And also, as I understand it, from North Star's assessment of the responses.
Right.
I think, though, some of those statements are the shoot from the hip statements. It's a quick answer.
Yeah.
What we need is more dialogue, because a dialogue with someone who gives you that as their first response may end up in a very different place after a discussion, a thoughtful discussion with people. So I'm not as upset about that as Peter is at the moment. But I think he has a really good point. I think we need to find a way of getting more dialogue with these people, because you just can't take, and a number of those things are shoot from the hip statements. It's a quick, easy answer to something without a lot of thought put into it, to what they're really saying. So I'm not as upset about that, but I think we have to find a way to have a much more in-depth dialogue with people when they make those kind of statements, to find out where they're really coming from.
Peter, I hope it helps that the vision statement committee, we talked about that extensively in our meetings as to what message we wanted to make sure was coming across, and including a lot of the content from the survey, and also writing the statement in a way that was extremely flexible to the point where we were delivering on that to people. So we're good. It's a working document, and we'll keep working on it, and we'll have another update to you within the next few weeks.
And believe me, it's not that I don't appreciate the work. It's just in looking at the data, at first blush, when I was reading it, it's like, geez, this really is a little bit, kind of elitist and standoffish and whatever. And then it's like, well, no, it's what they said.
I do think it's important to remember, though, that if everybody's saying they want Raymond to stay exactly the same, sometimes you have to change a lot of things about how you do things in Raymond if you want to keep things the same, right? Like if you want to keep the level of development around the lakes the same, say, that would actually involve a lot of change from the town level, and how land is used and things like that. So I think, there can be a balance of, it's good if people really like where they live and they want a lot of the things about it to stay the same. And I also think, and Raymond is not unique in this, that there is that kind of attitude of like, don't let too many people know about us, too many tourists, that kind of thing. But what I did want to say for the vision subcommittee, is that we also sort of figured that if you want to punt it back to us at some point, that would be part of the process. So when you're ready with your next draft, if you want us to take a pass over it and then we can bring it back here, like Peter said, it'll sort of evolve as we get more feedback from people, but that's
That's great to know.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
you'll most likely be taken up on that.
cool. Yeah, it's not all on you. We're here to help write it.
You
so.
folks have the experience and knowledge of how these things should read, and that based on your other towns that you've worked in, and not that we need to copy them by any means, but you're the experts.
I really liked the visual that you guys had created as part of the information from the survey results, where it was like that word
Oh, the word cloud?
cloud. Yeah. I wonder if we can kind of do that in conjunction with a vision statement like this, where it's like
Yeah, sure.
a little bit more visually captivating and kind of gets across the same sorts of sentiments as the vision statement.
Yeah, definitely. I think, there's a couple different, communities will sometimes have a page which is very graphic that just says main themes and just, kind of list those things out, or you can pick 4 or 5 big ideas and have that be sort of a visual kind of accompaniment to the vision statement. Say these are the biggest themes coming out of that.
Yeah.
So I think that's definitely something that helps make this a readable, understandable plan that we can keep in mind as we're working through all this.
Okay. Thank you. And thank you for all your work, the vision statement. One of the last things we have is the proposed date for future land use workshop in March.
Yeah, so this is basically just to keep us on schedule and to help Sue deal with booking things through the school. We are, by our project schedule, supposed to have a future land use workshop about 2 months after the initial workshop, so that would put us at the end of March. We can plan to do the same exact kind of afternoon time slot at the school if on a Saturday if people like that. We can also do a more traditional like evening meeting. Just have to figure out where. So I want to throw that out there.
Just from a logistics standpoint, basketball will be over by then, so we won't get the same crowd and won't have the same maneuvering with the schools.
I'm not sure if the school lets you have evening events or if they're booked up.
Weren't we talking
that
about
I'm not sure. I've only
public-
done
Yeah.
all day. So
Okay.
That's an
Elections tend to go longer than the evening.
It might be a good alternative if we're doing one at the school.
Where did you say? Sorry.
Public safety building?
Yeah, they do have a good-sized conference room there.
Yeah, so I think we don't have to come up with a final answer right now, but we probably by the January meeting should be trying to put something on the calendar. So whether we want to do another Saturday or whether we want to do a evening meeting, I don't know the town's other committee meeting calendars. Sue will have to help with that, but
Sue, can you get a pulse on the public safety building availability in March, end of March, just to get an idea of what, if they have things going on, or I don't know if they would know at that point, but.
Yeah, I don't know. They aren't advertising, and I don't believe they're letting public come in. And they used to do birthday
Yes,
parties
I
and things
used to
like
do
that.
that.
And they aren't doing that still. But I think for a town event, they probably would. But even that's probably because they are starting to a bit. But I'll check with Bruce.
Just for dates wise, the 31st of March is Easter.
okay.
2 weeks before that is St. Patrick's Day. A week before that is Daylight Savings Time.
That's not a good day to do it.
So maybe like the 23rd, 24th, that's the weekend between St. Patrick's Day and Easter, or, sometime within that sort of week.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
far enough after the election, so that makes
Okay.
it okay.
Yeah, or a weeknight too is also an option. The kind of traditional time slot for these is a 2-hour. How long was the Yarmouth one? 2 hours? Yeah, 2 hours. Like a 2-hour weeknight slot where we do a presentation and then people go and look at some maps, basically.
So maybe then we would like to aim for the week of March 18th.
That week, there aren't any regularly scheduled meetings.
Okay, that looks good for us too.
The 26th could be ZBA. The week before is Select Board and
Okay.
Planning Board, so. The week
Right,
before is you
so
folks.
the week of the 18th, extending into the weekend. I guess put a little bookmark on that in your calendars, and we'll try to nail down a date.
Yeah, that would be great.
I guess just a reminder, actually, I wanted to ask about our next meeting date. Technically, we'd be meeting on the 3rd, but I don't know if a lot of people are on vacation. That's right after the new year. Would we rather do the 10th? But of course, we have our
10th is
event.
Planning Board week.
Is it? Okay. So the 3rd? Okay. So next meeting date will be January 3rd of 2024.
Are you back for that?
I see no public. Sue, is that correct?
That we have no public.
Okay. So next is the comp plan committee comment. Sue, just real quick, I don't have my email with me, at least the Raymond email. So we were going to poll the committee's availability for the select board
Yes.
thing.
And
Can
I've
you-
only heard back from Bob O'Neill with dates, and he said the week of the 8th of January would work for him.
January 8th,
Yes, or
But-
during that week,
during that week.
yes.
And can you please tell the committee what that would be about?
It's the select board members have been watching your committee meetings and the planning board. And and the select board have been talking about ordinances, and they're realizing you're all kind of talking about the same kind of, what about for affordable housing? What about a short-term rental? What about ordinance changes that are kind of major to the town? And they just want to get together and have a conversation with the planning board, with the comprehensive plan committee, and themselves to just chat through what are people thinking? What are you seeing? What are you hearing? And try and kind of get on the same page, or at least have an understanding of what each committee is looking at.
So this is, the format of this is a workshop?
It's a workshop.
So it would be a workshop between the select board, this committee, and the planning board?
Yes.
I think if they're looking for input on what we're hearing, unfortunately, by week of January 8th, we haven't heard much.
Yes.
So I don't
you know,
know,
more
I mean,
later.
just for like, what would we have to offer as far as what we're hearing? We haven't really heard anything yet. I'd be more than happy to attend a workshop, and I don't know if anybody else would be willing to do that. I just don't know at that point if we would have as much to offer for information, but we certainly could listen and be a part of the conversation.
Yeah, well, the sense that I got, and Sean and I did attend the planning board meeting of last month when they were actually discussing ordinances. And what was really, and Sean certainly chime in on this, but my impression was that there really wasn't a lot on their radar regarding LD 2003. There was some discussion, but it seemed like nothing had come yet of discussions of tiny homes or but I guess one of the hot topics that they're probably going to want to discuss is going to be short-term rentals. And especially from our perspective, how does that apply to accessory dwelling units that will be available for all municipalities as of July of next year, unless, of course, the law court says you can't do that. But I don't believe that that's going to happen. So I think we pique their interest a little bit in the fact that time is short to get on the warrant if you want to have some sort of ordinance, at least addressing that. So there were actually quite a few things that came out of discussions at this committee that I'm going to say pique their interest a little bit. And I know that there has been discussion at the select board level about short-term rentals, but that discussion basically was over a year ago.
Yeah.
And I believe the decision at that point in time was to basically let's wait and see. And I think that we agree that wait and see and time has gone past.
Okay.
Well, and it was really wait and see what the state does.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so far, the state hasn't done a whole heck of a lot.
No, my understanding is that there were two amendments that were submitted through the legislature on LD 2003. One was to say, don't apply it to municipalities less than 4,000 in population, and that got voted down. And then there was a second one that said, an amendment that said, we'll delay this implementation yet again until 2025. And that got voted down. So I believe rulemaking is over. So I think the time now has come. And I think this committee has some valuable insights, and we also need some guidance as to where we should be going. I think personally one of my goals is to say, although I've looked everywhere in two previous comprehensive plans, it has not officially been identified as to what our growth area is. Now, it is by ordinance suggested that our growth area is the village area in the industrial commercial area. But that's insinuated.
Yeah.
It is not actually spelled out. And I believe there are implications as far as 2003 goes, as far as...
We don't have that in place.
yeah. Where is our growth area? Because my understanding is, and Sean, correct me if I'm wrong, but in a designated growth area municipality under this law, you can put 4 structures on a lot.
That was coming from the state, yeah.
Think of that.
Yeah.
It was
4 structures on a lot. Can we do it? Can we not do it? I think we need to have that conversation.
So I just wanted to clarify just real quick. I kind of was just thinking what public had for input, that we wouldn't have any of that yet, not necessarily our input.
Sure.
So I just want to clarify that point real quick. So that would be potentially the week of the 8th, and we would try to see if we could get as much attendance from this committee as possible.
Yes.
Okay.
And that's just the only input I've had for dates, so.
Okay.
So if anyone has any
I'll be
preference,
attending
et
no matter
cetera,
what.
by all means, let me know.
What
Yeah,
date
I'll,
it is
I'll
up
be
there.
attending as well.
Just something to think about for that meeting too is I think, like you said, we haven't gotten a lot of public input yet. If they're interested, it might be good to kind of put a pin in this too, and when we start working on the goals and policies and like more concrete things in a couple months, maybe having another joint
Second
workshop.
Okay. Okay, so I guess leave a spot open. You can.
And if you have
And
any
we'll give you a
preferences, let
more,
me know.
okay, so more, if you have a preference on a date or time or days that work best for you, email Sue, so she can sort of tabulate that, and she'll put out a,
An
let us
agenda
know.
of
Yep.
such.
Chris
and if
Chris
we can
Hansen
attend, that would be great.
at that meeting, presumably, hopefully.
He would, yes, I assume.
That
He's
would-
he's
that
not able to attend tonight. He had a personal thing come
Yeah,
up. but-
that would be a great meeting for Chris to
We
be
did
at.
inquire, Select Board, if it would be wise to have the town lawyer there as well. And I believe their decision was that it's a little too early for that.
Yeah,
early for
that eventually, yes, definitely, but right, this meeting, they just want to see what page everyone's on, basically.
Is there any other committee comment? I am not seeing any. We're just a few minutes behind, so can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And a second, please. Excellent. Thank you.